Oh, it's a stream. Here I am doing that thing. Streaming. Here we are. My little test area in Unreal. I'm Dodo Dev, by the way. This is not a tutorial channel. This is a uh, hang out and chat about game dev stuff. Stream. Yesterday, what did we even do? We talked about monster design. That was fun. I like that. I like getting paint and a little tablet, jotting down notes, talking about chess piece design as a basis for monster design in games. Good stuff. I showed off AI, which I'll show again, and I haven't touched this since last stream because yesterday I was engaged in a very fun design exercise that involved dragons and a dungeon. I run tabletop role-playing games because I'm obsessed with games and game design. Tabletop role-playing games. That's a nice subject to talk about while I eat this orange. Oranges are so good. So, we'll get to this a little bit. Again, because as you can see from today's goals, I wanted to talk about production. I've never been a producer officially, but there's some things I'm obsessed about in production because production methodologies, well, they're like systems, like gameplay systems, but not. But they scratch that itch deep in brain. Talk about that a little bit. Then, something to do with design, mission design, session prep for D&D, and or other games. I don't know. And then I have do a thing in Unreal or Piscal because I started making that little dude. Whoa. That little dude. I got to make him from like 10 billion different angles now. And not being an artist, I don't know. That'll be fun to explore. So, the thing I tried to do yesterday, last stream, but mangled horribly and then had to try to figure out how to edit it out of VODs, which you're not allowed to do. You have to make a highlight thing. So the last VOD is actually a highlight that cuts out like 1 minute in the middle because I was dumb about it. That was for this. Which is more exciting? I don't know. Yes, I do. This is more exciting. And I also just noticed something else very interesting going on. Based on technologically stuff. Because I'm not streaming the way I normally stream. No. I'm streaming in a slightly different way. And that slightly different way of streaming means that I don't have all these little helpful windows that I'm used to having. Now I have to rearrange stuff. It's like having people over to your house. And when they show up, you're just like, don't let me move the table around. Don't let me move the other thing around. So yeah, production. How things get done. Not the technical stuff, but a layer of abstraction higher than that. And not like a design document, a layer of abstraction higher than that. It's the plan for the project. So I have this going on. In Miro, which lets you do like a few things for free. But it's good because it's kind of like a whiteboard. Because these are all like post-it notes, but they're not. I use it just to keep my brain straight, which is the same things that I do when I have an actual whiteboard in front of me. But this is the one for this project. And this is the one for the old project I did. This is the old level design overview I did for the old project that I'm not doing anymore. We'll ignore all that. Zoop. And I'll go through these two. Never mind that anim tutorial. Trying to get my toes wet into figuring out how to solve animation problems, and I need to go back to it because it's been long enough now. I don't remember exactly what I did. What does my project currently have? So this project is there to be a game I could make and learn from. Learning, higher priority than making. But still, making, priority number 2. So we're using a basic character template. What does that mean? There's a first-person shooter character template that already exists in Unreal. I'm using that, much apparently to my detriment regarding animations right now. I got a basic flashlight. Let me boop that away for a second. If I hit F, boop, 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 I got a flashlight. It's simple. I think that also works in multiplayer. Excuse me while I also use this time to check some of the functionality and bug test the project. You can't see the second window, but that's okay. Ooh, what happens if I just click on this? It's there. It's there and it works. And it's not responding. Am I crashing OBS as we speak? Something's going on with OBS. I was talking about technical issues earlier. That was the source of my woes. Now I gotta check other things. I gotta be doing my own IT during this whole thing. Yeah. Looks like it's still going. Why OBS? I just wanted to show this working in multiplayer, and I just brought up the properties for a window that worked, and then everything just... Anyways. I don't know if... Where's the actual window? Housekeeping. Alright, I think this stuff only works client side. Yeah. New note from Miro, if I could ever get back there, because OBS is just crapping its pants all over the place. Bugs. Flashlight only works in single player. Or should that be I don't know. Well, that was fun. OBS did indeed decide to explode. So much for having a one-to-one VOD with the day's experience. Anyways, I was testing this in multiplayer just to see, hey, can I do this thing? Can I do this thing? Flashlight. No, doesn't work in multiplayer. I've listed it as a bug right here. And why? Why am I doing this? I'm the only person here, right? Because I'm not going to remember. By the end of the day, I won't even remember. So it's good to go through and test it again. Level not pitch black with no lights? Correct. We can see already through the little corner here the level has lights. Fixed floaty jump. Did we ever? I might even be able to do it a little bit more. What does that mean? Floaty jump. Get out of here, multiplayer guy. Ever play that game where you run around and you're like, woo, and it doesn't feel like there's any weight to the world? In the project settings in Unreal. Let me get out of this. Pump that gravity up. Or down, I guess. Should be negative. Do that. Double it. And then go to your character. I think it's in character movement. Character move. First person character movement. A jump strength thingy. Where you at? Jump Z velocity. Double that. Double gravity, double jump strength. Result? You don't feel quite as floaty. You're still a little float. Still going just as high as you were before, kind of, sort of. Play with those numbers until something feels good. Why are there two windows right now? I'm glad you asked. I'm going to ignore that. That was the pie window, the play and editor window. Next. Add a gas companion? Yes. That's why I have all these cool little abilities. Interact action? It's not great. It works. That's how I can go and boop. The interact UI shows up. Buh. We interact. See that? That's the thing. Gonna have to change it though because it's dumb. I can't interact right now. I'm on top of it. I'm trying. I'm hitting the button to interact. There's nothing to interact with. Interacting. Doesn't work. See it shimmy? That's because the door's locked. That doesn't work in multiplayer. This, I think this does. Did I have to redo the whole system for it? It's neither here nor there right now, but interact works. Interact UI. Wait, yep, shows up. Lights. Yep, just turn them on and off. Doors, keys, power. Yep, just showed all that off. Base enemy view 4 directions. Why? 4 directions? We already have a later note where we gave them 8 directions because we're replicating a Doom slash 8-bit kind of style. And little arrows to let me know where they're actually pointing. It's not actually going to ship in the game. And it's okay if it's like, oh, he's pointing off to the side. He's actually going that way. It looks okay. That's stuff we could all play with in the future. But they won't have that. Forward means I see in front of them. See their eyeball. Look at me. Look at me. Then you get to a certain angle and, oh, it's just right. Anyways, it works. That's the important part. Ooh, I changed some of my streaming settings in OBS, and now my computer's like, hey, things. Basic dash, player attributes, stamina control, health control, UI for health and stamina, UI for abilities and cooldown. I don't mind if I do. Lower left-hand side, health, heart rate thing, stamina. Stamina go down, turn blue while run. Stop, stamina come back, turn different blue. Dash. That's an ability, has a cooldown. I don't go up when I dash, but I do go in a direction, whatever direction I'm holding down. Health. Yeah, look at it. Ow. There's a race condition on the colors because sometimes you're healing whenever you're taking damage. Ideal solution, I should probably have two different icons, but for now I don't care. And then healing. That all works. Fantastique. And I'll get to why we're going through everything. This is a familiarization period, but it strongly ties into the idea of production and methodology. Super jump, I have it. I don't have it set up to be activated by anything right now, but it works. Sprinting, yeah. Base view enemy direction, yeah. Fix vitals widget heal versus hurt logic. It used to show hurt when you healed and vice versa. Fix that. Make weapon base. I did that. Made the pistol. Made a rifle. They can be equipped. Pudding proof. Pistol. It's not being held in the right place, but it's there. I hold that little thing. Maybe I should increase its size too. He's not holding it right. No matter where I move it, he's not holding it right. Remember? Remember when I said I had problems using the template character for stuff? It's because they have two models to do things. I have to figure out literally an entirely new solution for this. It makes sense because you've got one set of meshes and or one mesh that is used for your first person view to show your hands where you want them that is completely different using a different set of animations than what other players will be able to see in multiplayer. Third person games don't have that problem. Usually. I have that problem. I still only have dash. I don't remember where I put super jump. It exists. I just don't think I have it tied to any equipment. Does the bullet for the gun move so fast? No. The gun's broken somehow. There's this idea of tech rot. Not tech debt, tech rot. Where nothing really changes, but just over time, stuff that worked doesn't work anymore. And it is from change. It's from little changes in different places. They come back to haunt you by making other stuff not work. And then you find them, you figure them out, and you're like, what the? Why would thing A affect thing U? Rifle worked? Question mark. So I've never been in QA. I like QA people. They're good peeps. Games don't ship without them. There's a format for writing bugs. This is not the format. This is for me because it's for me. This is not a methodology. This is for me. If you start working with, say, one more developer, what I'm showing you right now is inadequate for communication purposes. The more developers you add, the more robust a solution you need in order to make sure they know what they're doing and keep them on track. That's the point of production. We'll get to it. Real terrible aiming animations. Yeah, so terrible they don't work, but they're there. My hope was to modify them. Boy, they fight me every step of the way. I'm not an animator. Basic MP replication? Yep, that works. Doesn't work with everything I haven't set it up explicitly for, like the flashlight, but it works for the stuff I have set it up for, like shooting each other with pixels in the face. Fixed enemy flipbooks for enemy facing, did that. I don't know why that isn't salmon, because it says fix, so it was a bug at one point. Replication, RPC for interactive objects. Yep. Fixed aim animation offset replication. Yes. Oh, it's the worst. Let me explain this to you. Wait, I got to go off on a tangent. So Unreal, ostensibly an engine about making shooters, has this thing called blend spaces. And a blend space, there we go. A blend space is this thing where you mix animations together. So see how in the little view there, I'm a guy and now I'm in this thing, and the blend space is blending between this pose to aim down, this pose to aim up, and this neutral pose. One of my problems is the gun doesn't line up with this and blah, 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 blah. But the way it works in Unreal, degrees go negative when they cross this plane. I don't like that. So in multiplayer, by default, when you set stuff up correctly, still a little livid about it, even though it was weeks ago, you'd be like, hey, this works just fine. And then you look down, as soon as you cross that line, fajah, up in the air. Up in the air. Even though to him, he's looking straight down. How to fix? I'll tell you how to fix it. Math. You fix it with math. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see if I can find where that was. We're in the ballpark. It wasn't in the blend space itself. Was it in the animation blueprint? No? Yes? Yes, no? It wasn't here. Was it? Yes. Oh, right here. So, okay. Begin blueprint update animation. Get the characters. Valid? Yes. All right, do this stuff. Movement. Movement things. Clamping in direction. Then, well, this is all stuff I learned from that tutorial. I have the post-it card for. Current acceleration and the ground speed is it greater than 1? Yeah, you should move. Is falling moving component? Set is falling to true. That other stuff looks for that. But then you get here. Then 3. Because I could have done this all in a line. It would have been a really long line. What are you doing up here? Try get pawn owner isn't used. Anyways, Unreal uses an and fixing grammar and comments to myself. It's kind of day it is. Unreal uses an unsigned byte when it replicates animation data, meaning negative values don't work, like a negative pitch. So after many hoops, this is the solution. Get the base anim rotation on the character. We just want the pitch. Is that pitch greater than 90 degrees? Yes. Subtract 360 from it. Set it. Is it greater than 90 degrees? No. Just set it. Not super complicated. Just checking the pitch. What does this do? It means that if I'm looking down, it subtracts 360 degrees. So that the other uh, so that the other person sees you behaving correctly, and vice versa. Where's my other window? Look at that. Here's the funniest thing. Every single game ever created in Unreal that does this, every single one has to implement this or a solution like this to handle a deficiency in the way the system does blend spaces with degrees. Is there probably a good reason for it? Sure. They got better things to do over at Epic than fix this one particular problem, especially because this isn't the hardest thing to implement, but you have to know about it. You got to learn what to do it. But this isn't going to derail a project for weeks or anything. I'm not an engineer, I'm a designer. I figured out how to do this. And so can you by looking at my screen or searching online, even though I'm not a tutorial. See it? See it? Solution! I just find it odd that the thing that they do, that this problem always just exists because of unsigned bytes, compression data, blur, 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 blur. I'm sure someone out there knows about it and would quickly put me in my place from complaining about it by telling me really good reasons why it exists. But oh boy, it's like a cheese grater to my brain for a while. I was flabbergasted that it just didn't work out of the box. Whew. Today's episode of Unreal Therapy. Fixed pistol idle shrinking. I had the wrong base pose set somewhere, so my guy would, instead of his arms pointed the wrong way, would shrink. When I tried to fix it, when he looked the other way, he would grow. He'd shrink to infinity and grow super huge. Those smarts. My brain didn't fix this. My brain broke this. And then randomly, figured it out. Sometimes it's the simple solution, which is just to look at every single one of your options on a character. Jiggle those wires, it's a IT solution. And then poof, it works. Basic blackboard, yeah. Smart object setup, yeah. Target blocks, projectiles, that's the yeah. Look, these things are so new, they're from my previous streams. Or my previous between streams, because I can't think well enough while I'm, I guess, talking to implement new stuff. I mean, that's not entirely true. Just, I'm not used to streaming. It's fun, though. In progress, attacks and NPC states? Yes. These are not yet set in stone. There's a tutorial I'm still doing that I don't want to do during a stream to do them, even though you can't hear it or see it. Maybe I will do the tutorials during a stream at some point. But it'll be like me paying attention to something else, then trying to do it and messing it up and going and rewinding a thing you can't see or hear. Riveting. Blocker. Make animations for holding weapons. Yeah, my whole setup for that. That sucks. What's this week's goals? Are these things that were in progress? I'll update that later. Animation tutorial I'll go back to. What doesn't work? Keys. If one player picks up the keys, it unlocks all doors to all players. Or here's how my keys work. Boop. You got a key. in the key, what door does it unlock? That's not talking about every BP door base. It's one you click on using the little thingy here. This key unlocks this door. That's fine. Doors needs key. Then these are things that I set. Has key, has power, needs power. Great. That key stuff though, that's before I started doing multiplayer to learn multiplayer. So these systems work fine in single player because in single player you're going to be like key. I did door. Shut the freaking door. Oh, the interact isn't on the door, it's on the frame. Anyways, so that works fine in single player. But in multiplayer, like I can't relock this door. Maybe that would actually fix it. This guy, why isn't it? Boy, I had to go back and forth a lot for that. Anyways, this guy is now like, hey, I too have power over door. So if I set a thing, another key on the keyboard, another control, although controls are precious, to relock a door. Let me think about this. Let me think. If I'm relocking the door, needs key, has key, no, I need a locked state. Anyways, that's a refactoring for another time. But that's what that message means in Miro. Here's Miro. Combat, projectile look, enemy damage look do not work correctly in multiplayer. This is not a multiplayer game, but I still want to have a nice, good, useful to a potential employer kind of understanding of Unreal scripting for multiplayer. Can't interact with rifle. Rifle is so messed up. It's so messed up. I don't know why. I guess I kept making the pistol work, but on the pistol and not on the parent for BP weapon base, so the changes don't also get to the rifle. It's something to look at some point. Switching pistol to rifle stays on rifle and fires backwards on client in multiplayer. Makes my heart hurt. Add internalization node and ABP pistol between locomotion and fall loop. I put a note here because this is a solution to an error that keeps popping up. Not 100% of the time, but sometimes I'll jump and shoot and do things, and it's like, you need this. And I look it up, and they're like, do this. I'm like, how? I don't know. I don't know how. And then AI tries to tell me, and it doesn't work. And I feel bad for trying to use AI. So I got to find tutorial, set this all up again. And then the new one, flashlight only works in SP. What's the debt? Enemy-based targeting getting player pawn doesn't work in MP. All the stuff we're working on right now isn't set up to work in multiplayer. I have to get the base version of it in so I can learn about it with this tutorial. Then I need to go back with multiplayer knowledge and refactor parts of it for multiplayer. So that if I ever had to do it again, I would just do the multiplayer implementation of it first. But that's not the cool tutorial that I found. Maybe it will be. That dude, he puts multiplayer stuff in. It's probably going to be part of the tutorial. What does this mean for production? Well, the goal of production is to make sure everyone's doing the right work at the right times, and that the work that has to be done is enough for the number of people doing it, for the number and the skill slash quality of the people doing it. What drives production? Well, timelines. What drives timelines? Literally dates, which we'll get back to. Available money. Someone gives you $1 million, says make a game. I want you to make a racing game for $1 million. And you're like, all right, that's this many people at these pay rates employed for this amount of time. That's what $1 million gives us. It's not one to one because things like insurance and benefits, like they just sometimes I've heard that it should double. Like if you make, wow, I'm rambling. If someone makes $100,000, they're going to cost $100,000 in benefits in that same year. That's the old estimate from like over a decade ago that I heard that companies, if they use that as a rule of thumb, they'll be fine because it's probably way more of an estimate than the reality of how much that stuff costs. But there you go. So $1 million, $100,000, which is $200,000. I think it also bakes rent for an office in there. You don't need offices, but whatever. 5 people for a year. So you got 5 people to make one racing game in 1 year for $1 million. That is a limitation. Limitations are useful in a lot of ways. I'm gonna see if I can get this working. Let me move some wires around and get this. Oh, this tablet over here. Tablet's like twice the size of a 3x5 inch index card. It's hilariously small. Then we go over here and say I'm a pen. Oh, all right. So I got money. Boy, I like this better in Paint yesterday. Wow, why is this not nearly as good as it was yesterday? Look at it make the line wiggle. I mean, if I made this flatter. Anyways, so here's my terrible handwriting, but what we're saying right now is that money defines time and people. Can you, what do these buttons do? Zoom, circle. Anyways, so if you got 1 mil, you can do 5 devs at K for 1 year. Assuming office and benefits, and taxes, and everything else. So you got your $1 million. All right, we're gonna make a racing game. What do you do? The project? That's what the project would do. In technical terms, it's number of features, its quality and quantity, it's how much content you have. And there's other things like art and blah, 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 blah. So you got $1 million, just salary. Things like Unreal, you don't have to pay up front. You pay on the back end. If you make over a certain amount of money, then you got to pay them instead of buying a license up front. If you're a big company, you can like negotiate, I guess, for a better license than what Joe Schmo would pay. I don't remember. Different engines have different things, right? And if you're making your own engine, that gets rolled into the project's cost. So racing game, what we're talking about now is how how many features does a racing game have? What is a low feature racing game? Low feature, low scope. Maybe it has one track, three cars, no AI, all-time trial, PSX graphics, PlayStation 1 style stuff, right? There's your low scope racing game. You got a big track and just three cars, blah, 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 blah. Probably below the minimum viable product. MVP, minimum viable product. How are we going to sell this thing? If there's too few features, that price got to be cheap. And depending on the goals of the project, maybe even free. Microtransactions aren't on this list. When I say free, I mean free, just to get a name out there. Oh, from the makers of simple racing game comes complex racing game in the future. You played the first one, now play the one you have to pay money for. I tried writing that looking at the OBS screen. It messed me up. How many tracks? 20 plus user generated content. High scope. Because now you have to make a whole thing about letting people make their own tracks. Talking about Forza. They got more than 100 cars. They got a lot. Make custom cars. Custom cars, custom tracks. Beam NG Drive. Looking at you. Lots of race types with custom. Nice graphics. Etc., etc., etc. Right? You get it. This game here, this could be like 100 million, and this could be like 1 million. Because the other thing is time. High scope games with a big budget, time becomes really variable. Low scope games, time is not that variable. It's kind of a hard limit. Why is that? See how we kind of defined these things here? We're only going to aim for these. This is it. We know what we're doing. That's very clear. It's very fuzzy. Producer, four other people, designer, engineer, artist, QA, right? They can make this game. Get together, just say, here's what we're doing. Anything we get beyond this is bonus. But we're aiming right for this. And even then, they might find out that they could do more than this with $1 million. But this is their starting point, and it's very clear what they're doing. When they have a clear plan, when there's clarity, they can do things like, oh, how many months? because they're also going to be clear on their own capabilities. Maybe they can't, maybe this is a goal and they start and then they get the information they need to understand how long it might take and adjust from there. But in general, high clarity means you can figure this stuff out. Over here, fuzzy, low clarity. Can you imagine? I know there's actually people out here who do this for a living. Some people can do it fairly well, but in general, this is too much information over here to actually know. You don't know this. You don't know this. You also don't know this, but it's smaller. It's more understandable. So what do you do when you start a project? What does the planning mean? Let me get on a soapbox. Let me start talking about stuff that people don't like, which makes me very sad, but I'm going to talk about it anyways. Excuse me if I mess this up, but we're talking agile versus waterfall. Waterfall. Hey, here's how we're going to start this project. A designer is going to write a document. It's going to say exactly what they're going to do, exactly what we need. Maybe they talk about it. Maybe they go a few rounds of that document. But in the end, that's the Bible. Go and you write that document. That's the project. We know everything we need to know because it's in a document. When we start, nothing changes. We're assuming how long the work takes. We're assuming the interconnection between different variables, like how one feature interacts with another, interacts with another, interacts with another, interacts with another in a web. It's assumed. Yes, we've got 3 years and this much money. Yes, person giving us money. The milestones when we sign the contract are going to include A, B, and C on this milestone, D, E, F on this milestone, etc., etc. Here's the problem. Documents, they don't generate knowledge. They don't. You can suss through conceptually a problem in a document, a flow chart, or whatever, and be like, yeah, we have a pretty good plan now that we've done this in our heads. Maybe that's going to solve some problems before they happen. But when you implement, things change. Things change. They just do. And if things don't change, and you're able to just have a design document by some miracle that you implement, that might not be fun. Might do all that work and find out it's just not that fun. That interaction between the different parts just doesn't have that magic. Documents do not generate knowledge. Documents capture knowledge that already exists. But every project, it is different. Every single one. Every project's different. So if you do project A and you learned all this stuff doing it, and you're like, oh, that racing game, wow, we learned so much doing it. All right, what's the next project? Oh, it's a role playing game. All right, we'll take all of our learnings from the last project, and then we'll start this process again where we assume we know everything. But oh, For this role-playing game, we just made this racing game. But you know it's going to be a different set of variables. Heck, even doing a racing game afterwards. Whatever differences are in the next racing game could invalidate a lot of what everyone's looking at as knowledge. Do you get it? You have to generate knowledge. How to generate knowledge. Prototypes. Dot, dot, dot. That's how you generate knowledge. Making a racing game. Plan it all out on paper. Put it together. Oh, doesn't feel fun. Let's go back through a vast amount of what we've done to try to find the fun. Ugh. Better. What did it do to my E? Do you see this? E. Anyways, better approach. All right, racing game. Let's just kind of get the fundamentals down. Box on track. Acceleration, deceleration, friction, gravity. Work with that for a little bit until you can play it in your head. Then get feedback. You got something playable. Prototype is playable. They have to be able to be played. It's not perfect. Not by a long shot. If you make a prototype and it's like, oh, that's perfect, something's wrong somewhere. You got to get your big magnifying lens. At least your initial prototype. Because when you take a prototype and you add iteration, you do get knowledge. It is more perfect than just prototypes. This right here, this word that is, maybe you can't even read it because my handwriting's so bad. That's the key to game development. Right there. That's it. Iteration. But it's not just iteration on its own. Iteration in a vacuum sucks. Vacuum pun. I don't know if to put down analysis or experience here. You analyze through the lens of your experience. That's iteration. Feedback. You generate feedback in your own experience. And then you do another version with small measurable changes. And you keep doing that. It's a cycle. Wow. Like loops because you play video games? Iteration loop. You just do this for as much time as you possibly can. How did Blizzard make good games back in the day? They did this writ large. I didn't work there, but I've heard stories of make a zone in WoW, and they go through the whole thing and they set it up, quests and monsters and everything else. And then they throw it out. And they start over. And they do that over and over again. After they've done it a few times, which, by the way, is why their games were hugely expensive and took forever. You would have something that's been through this loop so much that it was like the third or fourth sequel in a series to itself. Expensive, costly, legendary. People are like, oh, Blizzard's changed. Well, they don't have the room to do this hugely expensive thing. But on the other hand, it doesn't have to be hugely expensive because you don't have to go through the process of making a whole zone with everything in it, get it ready for ship, and then throw it away and do it again, and then throw it away and do it again. You do it in small parts. That's what everybody has to do now. And that's fine because you can still make something really good out of it. First take of a movie for a scene on movies that have, I don't know, a desire to be high quality, that first take is not what people are going to see. They joke about it. Oh my God, I had a thing where I took the first take. It was amazing. I took this part of the first take. It's so rare. Same thing with games. You do the thing, do it again. Better now, probably. I have seen things get worse over iteration, but that's just from malformed feedback. Sometimes people in power, the people signing the paychecks or giving a studio money, or I don't know, the leprechaun with the bunch of gold that hired a studio to make a game, they'll say, no, do thing I want. Me pay money. No money if not do thing I want. And then you have to do the thing they wanted. And it throws all this out the window. But in general development, going making a game by yourself or not, iteration is the beating heart of game development. That's the key. So Waterfall assumes that it already has all the knowledge it needs to make a schedule. And everyone's complicit in this lie because they kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, things go wrong, and then we'll change it. Yeah, every month, every lead will completely redo their entire development plan in Waterfall to account for little changes, just so the dates at the end line up, even though we know it's all fake. The publisher knows it's fake, yet they demand the numbers. The developers know it's fake, yet they sign up for it. The leads know it's fake, but yet they plan it out. And it lets people, the workers, say, it's doing my job. Guy told me to do the thing, so I'm just doing the thing because it's in the schedule, so now it's done. I don't agree with it. It's a bad idea. I sent him an email saying it's a bad idea. I'm doing it anyway. I get paid. And the lead's like, oh, did the thing. At least he was busy. Maybe it'll be useful, even though I know it's going to change. Wasn't really needed. Talks to the directors. Yeah, the stuff wasn't really needed, but it's the way the schedule currently is. They're like, yeah, it's okay for now. We'll fix it. And then they talk to the publisher. Publisher's like, hey, you gonna meet these milestones? It's like, yes, sir. Gonna meet the milestones. It's gonna be awesome. Best game ever. Yes, sir. Any problems? Here's a few problems that aren't really problems, just so you can feel good by going, oh, yes, here's a solution to them. Oh, yes, thank you, sir. Thank you for the money. We're going to keep making this game you want, sir. Yes. Have a good day. Don't have to talk to them again for a month. There are also well-run waterfalls where people have done this stuff so many times in the past, and they're doing the same thing again. And the studio's been around a long time doing the same thing. People are just like, we're doing that again. We all know how to do that. In those rare, 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 rare cases, teams can get an incredible amount of work done at a high amount of quality following a waterfall plan. I'm talking a team that's worked together for 20 years, making the same kind of game with the same kind of tools and the same kind of genre, et cetera, et cetera. They're all old hands at it. It's the only place I've seen waterfall be truly successful. And I have seen it. I've been part of projects that do that. And it's a thing to behold. Because everyone knows there's problems with waterfall. It's not like there's some sort of secret about it. What's agile? It doesn't assume. Agile says that publisher said, "Hey, how many tracks can be in this racing game?" He said, "I don't know until we build one." Well, how long does it take this other company to make tracks? We don't know. We're not from that company. This isn't that game. We aren't those people. These aren't those tools. We're going to make a track and then say, this is how long it took to make that track. And then we're going to make another one and say, this is a more complicated track. It's how long it took to make that track. And then we know kind of how long it takes us to make a track. We can assume in the future it'll go faster because there's less research and development going into the creation of the feature. But, right now this is it. And we'll update our estimates later based on actual work doing the actual work. How many cars are you going to have? Well, we'll go build a car. Then we'll have an idea of how. Well, okay, can you give me a ballpark? No, I'm not going to give you a ballpark in time. I'm going to tell you that's going to be complex. There's a lot of misunderstanding about Agile. Specifically, I say Agile kind of as a generic term, but I'm talking about the bad word. The language of Mordor. Not to be spoken aloud. Boy, people are really anti-Scrum anymore. And you know why? What they think is Scrum isn't Scrum. I've been doing this a long time professionally. Believe it or not. Even though I have a lot of fun on this stream, and I can't think straight on the stream, and it looks like I'm just bouncing around mentally like a pinball, in reality, when I got like the music going, and I'm just doing my thing with the tools, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing, it sings. It goes so well. I love it. I love it. I love making games. And in all of my time, I've seen 3 Scrum projects run pretty close to how Scrum should probably be run. Pretty close. Good. Not bad. It was good. But I've been involved in far more projects that say we're using Scrum, and then they don't. You got to stand up. Let me go into Scrum real quick. All right. I already hear the people complaining. I've already built the straw man in my own mind about this. Sorry, straw man. I'm gonna go over here. What is Scrum? You've got a backlog, features. It's not really well defined. Backlog is not a collection of tasks. Here's what a backlog would be like for a racing game. What do we need? A car. Well, that's in a backlog. Is that ready to be presented to a team? No. Where did it come from? It came from a product owner talking to stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people who are going to make money off the sale of this game and are likely giving you money to make it. We're talking studio heads, directors, C-suite executives, marketing. Those people are stakeholders. Team, dev team, doesn't need to interact with those people. But the product owner is the conduit of information going to those people and to the team. They're in between. They're the fulcrum point. It's one of the roles. No, I'll just put it over here for now. Their job is to make sure the will, the needs is probably a better word, of the stakeholders produces a return on investment. The project produces a return on investment. What's the project? It's the stuff the stakeholders need you to do. They said racing game. PO says, all right, gonna have race cars then. Yes, there's a conversation layer happening above the dev team involving the product owner and the stakeholders. Out of that comes the things that go in the backlog in general. Then what happens? Then you can talk to the dev team. Because you're not going to talk to, I mean, you could, as a product owner, talk to a marketing representative and be like, well, when you say race car, what do you mean race car? And so they might say things like, it's got them brand stickers. Go fast, room. They might have more specific details than that, but you get it. This isn't defining the gameplay feature. This is kind of defining the word race car. But then he turns around and says, all right, talking to the engineer, head of art, head of design, whoever on the dev team, however they split it up, because it's going to be different. And in an ideal Scrum, those people, those titles don't exist. There's no leads. We'll get to that. But they talk to the dev team and they're like, all right, what do we want to do? Make sure drifts equals fun game, not simulation. That's something else. Whoever's giving you money will probably say, do you want like a racing simulation that race car drivers can train on? No, we want a fun game for players. Is it like an arcade game? No, a little bit more realistic than that. All right, not a high detail simulation, bit simulating. Drifting has to be fun. Goes fast room's fine. Has stickers for brands like race cars do. That's a good note. That does need a system for that needs to be creative. That's one of the things they need. It's going to have 4 wheels, engine, body, like whatever these things are. So I'm not going to do it all here because I'm not going to make it a racing game because these are conversations. It's one of the big things about this. Let me go back real quick. Talking about this over here. This waterfall. There's less conversation. There might be more meetings, way more meetings, but less conversation that has actionable outcomes, less conversation that helps define things. You're saying, I got experts, and I assume those experts know what they're doing. Write a document that we're going to follow to the letter, and do a whole lot of work every time there's any change after that's already started to be implemented. This doesn't. Team, talk. What do we mean when we say race car? Game has combat. What do we mean when we say combat? Game has jumping. What do we mean when we say jumping? Game has movement. What do you mean whenever we say movement? What's the point of this? This isn't tasks. This isn't work yet. 4 wheels isn't work yet. No. What they're doing is defining the shape of a feature. That goes into the backlog. After a transformation. Actually, not even after a transformation. Because in between things being in the backlog and the dev team getting it, it turns from a list of stuff into a goal. Yeah. Essentially making this which has to stop at a certain point. You're not designing the feature in the backlog. No, 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 no. It's just the shape. Because at a high level, before you get to the dev team and the people doing the work, you got to stop defining it. They're your experts. We'll get to that. List of goals. And then they're prioritized. Are they prioritized by technological complexity? They organized by how much time a PO thinks it's going to take? No. Return on investment. This list is prioritized based on what features are going to give the project a return on investment for the people paying for it. Or if that investment is something else, oh, it's $10 million, make a game. Oh, I don't care if it makes money, make whatever you like. And, whatever you like becomes the priority and not money in whatever magical fairyland world that is. Return on investment. That's how the PO, the product owner, prioritizes the backlog. What's on top of the backlog is the stuff that when it's done is the heaviest hitting stuff for the marketplace. Or whatever the goal is, if it isn't money. So then what happens next? You got all these people. They want to do work. You have one of the few meetings in Scrum. I want to get into this. I've heard people complaining that Scrum has too many meetings. Right there, that's a sign that you're not in Scrum. You're in Scrum Butt, which is where it's Scrum Butt. We've made these changes. I worked with someone once called it Tragile. I love that phrase. It's not agile, but it is tragic. It's Tragile, where you're like in a mock agile environment that has very few of the benefits of agile. Let's do waterfall if you're opposed to agile. If you're the person in charge of a studio and you don't want to do agile and you're not going to support people doing agile, then don't. Tell them, hey, I'm not leading you here. I'm bossing you around. I'm not telling you we're doing waterfall. Don't put lipstick on a pig, man. If you're going to do agile, do agile. If you're not, if you ain't into it, if the studio isn't 100% supporting an agile process, don't do it. Just don't. And also, you can't start this in the middle of a project. Don't do it. Because at the end of the day, here's the dirty secret about all of this stuff. Is the goal of production is to make sure people are doing the right work. Period. If you're consistently making sure people are doing the right work based on whatever the circumstance is right now, congratulations, you're running a successful production methodology. Need a little help with that? Scrum is a framework. It's a scaffolding. You start as a pure thing that I'm going to keep talking about here in a minute. And then every single sprint, every single time where you say, everyone stop, we're going to inspect and iterate. We're going to inspect now. Part of that inspection is the process itself. And then it changes just a little bit, trying to make it better. Then you do it again. Just like the features in the game, Scrum is a process that relies on iterating itself. And at the end of it, it may not even resemble Scrum anymore. If I get onto a team, they're like, we're using Scrum, and it doesn't look like Scrum. How long have you been working on it? 5 years. Oh, okay. Makes sense. If you get on a team, it's like, hey, we're doing Scrum, and they're not doing Scrum. How long have you been doing it? A month? Problem. So you have a backlog. It's prioritized by the PO. PO talks to the team. It says, hey, we're going to have X amount of time. This is an amount of time to do goal. Goal comes from the backlog. Highest priority goal. Now, in an ideal scrum, and when I say I've seen scrums run almost completely correct, this is the part I've never seen, but seems magical. Because in this process, this is the we're getting into crazy land. This is why people they recoil sometimes and they say there's no way we can do this. We're not going to do that. You've got things that define the output of a certain kind of work. If there's code, it hits these standards. If there's art, it hits these standards, right? That kind of stuff. Technically, you no longer have engineers, artists, designers, or anything else. You just have the dev team. And when you bring the dev team the goal during sprint planning, which is a meeting there is no escaping from until the work is done, until everyone is super clear on what they're doing in the sprint, and there's no questions. Bring the goal to the team during the sprint planning meeting. Plan out however long the sprint is, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, longer, shorter, based on that goal. And then people sign up. I think I can help do this in relationship to that goal. Are you sure? I want to do the body of the car. I will model and texture that. Ah, do you know how to do that? No. No, you're not doing it. So that's one of the first points where people recoil because they're going to be like, well, some of this is obviously art, some of this is obviously engineering. We have artists, we have engineers, they're going to do that work. But in reality, people who can achieve the quality bar and the requirements for doing that work by department can do that work. I've run into a thing where I'm like, oh, I think I know how to do that. And I start and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I've made a mistake. Got to know yourself for that. So right here, we have the first split. Oh my goodness. Anyone? Any oh, brain. Stream brain. Jesus, what am I doing? That's the first split where people are into it and it makes sense, and then they go, oh, if it's going to be artwork and we've hired artists to do artwork, then I'm not going to let the designer do the artwork, even if they can do it because we have artists we've hired. Fine. That's cool. That's an okay thing to do in general, although I'd still love to see it done the other way. So you have this big meeting. It's a sprint planning meeting. Lunch is ordered for everybody. And they're all in the same room. Post-COVID, remotely, people are just in the same meeting, and it's not as optimal. But that's okay too. You can split out into little sub-meetings to talk, just like walking over to a corner of a room and to talk to people. There's ways of making it work. It's fine. It's fine. So they take the goal. All right. First thing we're going to work on is race car. And then they take the definition, the shape of the race car that they had, the PO had. PO is bringing all this to everybody from the stakeholders, and they discuss it. All right, inside here, here's my prioritization, and I talk to specialists and experts, and I think this is our okay prioritization, but now it's in front of the team. The people a company has hired that they trust implicitly, who have made it through their hiring process in order to make the game. And a lot of it is now in their hands. Way more creative responsibility is in the hands of the teams doing Scrum than in the hands of the teams doing Waterfall. Some people don't like taking that responsibility. Some people don't want to talk up during the planning meeting and be like, oh, I think that might be a problem. Or, oh, I think that feature that you're talking about, I think that the wheels should work like this instead. It's another point of friction to some people. I love it. It makes perfect sense to me. You've hired these people to make games, but instead you've defined everything so rigidly that their job becomes data entry and tools use, period, with no room for expression. Nah, 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 nah. You hired these people, you trust these people to make a game. Here's where the first test of that appears. You're making a race car. So the team then discusses what are the things that we could do. This is why this meeting takes all day. It's supposed to. It is a replacement for the confusion and problems that would happen in a waterfall environment. You get them all out of the way, right here, right now. As many as you possibly can, with the understanding that things are going to happen even during the sprint. We'll get to that. We'll get to what that means. And so, after they talk to the PO, and as long as it's not radically different, PO and them will probably agree on, all right, then these are the goals for the sprint. And then the team gets to planning the work. They've signed up for Goes Fast Room, the engine, the body, and the wheels, whatever it is, whatever they have said, yeah, we can probably do that. They sit down and they prove that. Can we? I'm going backwards with space. So sprint planning. Boop. I'm gonna buy a new brain. And then here's one of the major differences between Waterfall and Scrum. The team defines the work. The people, the experts in game development doing the work define the work that they're going to do. Buy-in is consensus and excitement about doing a thing. Whenever you come to a group of people and you say, here's the problem I'm trying to solve, which is essentially, how do we get this done in a 2-week period? They look at it and they're like, well, can't get the whole thing done, but we'll get these parts done and we'll show you how. And they figure it out right there. And everyone's in the room or everyone's available that they need to talk to for information for how they think they're going to do this. Super buy-in. They solved that problem. They are the ones that came up with the plan. They're the ones that's going to execute on the plan. They're in it. They love it. This is one of it's a superpower, and I can express it positively. But the way this is set up is so that psychologically people are more engaged with their work. It's kind of a trick, but the trick boils down to trusting people that you've hired, so it's okay as a shortcut. Time for another split. Team estimates the work. All right, so the work. Going to make the body. What does the body do? Well, we're going to research cars. That's one task. We're going to model some bodies, see how that works. Prototype using body, whatever, model, texture pass one, texture pass two, shaders, whatever, right? You say we're going to make the car body, and then the people doing the work break down what that actually means. What are they going to do? And then they can say, all right, I'm going to research. Well, for how long? Estimate how long you're going to spend on research. Estimate how long it's going to take to model the test bodies. And it comes down to another split. Points versus time. Estimated time. How many work days is it going to take you to do this thing? Easy to understand. Straightforward. But even though every Scrum project I've worked on uses this instead of points because it helps the team understand it quicker, just gets people moving, points is a layer of defense against anyone looking into the project. Because iterative cycles and hard end dates, if that end date's far out there enough, it'll work. But there's a layer of guarantees, false guarantees in waterfall, mind you, but still guarantees where a team says, yes, by this date we'll have this work done. It doesn't exist in Scrum. The trade-off in Scrum is it has high clarity due to the way the work is tracked. It is very easy to look into a project and see how things are going in Scrum. Not projection, not Gantt charts. My God, when I get onto a project, they say they're using Scrum and then they open up a Gantt chart. I have to swallow the puke. Gantt charts are external facing. They should never be shown to the team. But we'll get to that. But since Joe Executive can just, oh, here's the thing. How's this going? Huh, they say as they see hours estimated. And then they start doing math. Well, if this is taking this long to do a thing, they should be able to do this much thing given this much time. And they're wrong because of the variables around the work that's being done every sprint. Make a body on sprint one, make a body on sprint two, those aren't going to be the same estimates. Not really. You know more on sprint two about how to do it. Sprint 10, making body 10, making body 20, maybe. Maybe you've really figured out how to do it, all the quirks. And anyone with an understanding of how time works can look in on your sprint chart, your burn down charts, and go, I feel like I'm being cheated, or I don't know, what's the opposite? They could do more work in this amount of time, or maybe a caring executive goes, they need to be doing less work. They have 100 hours estimated and only 20 hours remaining. What are they doing? I don't want to burn out my team. That's the danger of using time to estimate work. Points abstracts it. Time is danger. But Gets the team on board fast. Points, it doesn't make as much sense. How long is it going to take you? 8 hours. That's 5 points. Why is 8 hours 5 points? Why isn't it 8 points? Because you said it's going to take 8 because it's a complexity 5. Well, but that doesn't translate to how much work I can get done. It kind of does because complexity assumes how long it's going to take to solve a problem or learn a new thing or make it work with everything else. Its complexity is 20. Oh crap, break that down into the parts. What parts are making it so highly complex? Talk about it. Break it down. But executive looks and says, oh, it says they have 100 points left to do in 2 days. Can they do that? Is that thing? Wait, this isn't 100 hours of work and 16 hours to do it. This is 100 points of complexity in 2 days? It's apples and oranges. You've just shielded the team. You've just invited a conversation where people in the know on the team can say, oh, hey, yeah. So some of this stuff was pretty complicated, but they figured out a lot of what they need to do. So they're going to chew through those points really quick. Team's not worried. You shouldn't be worried. It's fine. It's a better conversation to have than why is the team going to do, how are they going to do hundreds of hours of work in 16 hours? They can do 16 hours of work per person in 16 hours. They cannot do 100 hours of work per person in 16 hours. Bad conversation to have. That's the trade-off. Points, they don't make any upfront rational logical sense. It's something that the team itself, based on the individuals, come to a consensus on what it means, and then the project can move forward. Maybe low complexity is 2 points. Maybe 5 is a pretty big complexity. Whatever they come up with. And then after a few sprints, go back and say, hey, you guys could do 45 points a sprint. And then when they're planning, they know not to plan more than 45 points. When they're planning and it's hours, you can do 40 hours of whatever a sprint. Should always be less than that per week, by the way. Just from the way things happen at work. Anyways, then everyone gets the wrong thing. Oh yeah, that'll take me 8 hours, and this is blah 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 blah. But either's fine. It's just your trade-offs, and realize you're opening yourself up as a person who talks to executives, as a PO. Some conversations you might not want to have if you're using time, versus conversations you may not want to have with just how dumb points feel with the team. Pick your poison. Base Scrum uses points. That's why. Oh my god. Can it be done? Does it work? If you plan a sprint, the numbers look like they line up, there needs to be a sanity check. Just to make sure. Just to make sure. Can it be done? But also with the sprint planning, no one should have unanswered questions. If you're going to have a design task come out of a sprint planning, that's fine. The unanswered questions are not, well, what is the rate of friction on the axle between the wheels and the engine? You don't figure that out in sprint planning. You just figure out you're going to do that work. That's more conversations. Going back to the fact, God, I love talking about this, where you know that documentation does not generate knowledge. Sprint planning does not generate knowledge. Doing the work, that does it. How do you generate the knowledge? What do you want a document for? You plan it out in tasks. And then when you learn knowledge, then you document it. Design documents should come at the end of the sprint, not at the beginning. If you write one at the beginning, it's just going to be wrong as you work through the sprint. Do them at the end if you need them. I don't like design documentation. I'm a designer, and I don't like design documentation. Documentation didn't used to be part of design way back in the day. I'm not, I haven't been doing this for so long that I worked during the Atari years. No. But back then, they didn't do the design documentation. They had documentation, they had notes, they could figure stuff out with it, but they didn't start by trying to pre-plan everything on paper before they did it. No one got time for that. It was generally just one person working on those games. So there you go. The origins of game design didn't include documentation, but now everyone thinks it's design's primary function. It's not. What is design's primary function? It's to make stuff fun. That's not everybody's priority on the project. It's design's priority. It could be an overall goal. But design is supposed to make the game enjoyable, or not all games are meant to be enjoyable. Whatever the game is meant to be, to make the player feel gameplay-wise, the designer's job is to make that happen. There's a lot of parts to that, but it's not to write documentation. But you will write documentation, just how it is. Just make sure that documentation is useful and captures real knowledge learned during the process. You need to set some design goals for people. You keep that thing to a few bullet points, and then you talk to people. Talk. Blah, 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 blah. Use your mouth. Consensus. Have those conversations with people. That's design. Ugh. All right, so everyone has tasks. Looks like that work will get to the goals that have been agreed upon and that it's not too much or too little work. Now what? Well, that sprint planning took a day. Is it going to take more than one day? If sprint planning takes more than one day, your goal's too complicated. You got to break that down. What happens after sprint planning? Sprint itself. The sprint. It's a time box, as are all the tasks. It's a time box because it is agreed upon amount of time before the next inspection, which is the sprint review, which we'll get to. That's a very important thing because a lot of people don't understand this. They're too used to waterfall. They're too used to things going off the rails during a milestone. Sprints are not analogous to milestones. There's some versions of Scrum that have releases which are more analogous to milestones, but it's still not the same thing. Anyways, sprints don't change. Let me rephrase that. This is super important. This goes back to dev team trust, clarity of what this process brings. You don't uproot a goal during a sprint That's an emergency situation if you do that. How long is it? How long is your sprint that something so crazy happened that the goal you agreed upon needs to be altered? Because when that happens, a sprint's canceled and you need to go back to sprint planning. But it happens all the time in waterfall, so people are used to it now. This stuff doesn't change. You planned it out with a team. If you're afraid of frequent change on your project, then you've got 1 week sprints. Don't make them 2 weeks. If you expect things to change during them, no. Make it the shortest amount of time that you can. With the acknowledgement that there's a process for review and planning the next sprint that happens afterwards. If you have a sprint that lasts 1 day and you take 2 days to set up the next sprint, what you doing? That's bad. So if they say we're going to make the body of the car, you don't suddenly kick in the door one day and say you're making the wheels now. That shouldn't happen. Kick in the door and be like, we need to talk about the goals and the timing. Oh, okay. Talk to the team about that. But you don't just pull the rug out from under them. Is it such an emergency that you can't wait till the end of the sprint to change these things? Because the work that's been done in the sprint so far, when you get back to it, you're going to replan versus the same goals. Those tasks may change. You discard tasks. Keep tasks around at the end of a sprint. Don't. You either hit the goal or you failed the goal. Regardless, you're going to have a new goal the next sprint. You plan it out again. I hate seeing piles of tasks waiting for people to take them in future sprints. Variables change constantly on these projects. So if you have goals from 2 months ago, those may not be the same tasks. You have tasks from 2 months ago, and then you're trying to hit the same goal again in the future, those may not be valid. They may not make any sense. It's just a point of confusion. It's debt. It's task debt. Get my blood boiling. All right, so we got the dev team. We got the product owner. We know what they do. But now that you're actually doing the work, what do you do in the sprint? How do you're trusting people just to do their work? But how do you know they're still doing Scrum? How are they tracking this stuff? There's a lot of clarity. Who's making it clear? There's a little process for this. It's a new role. Not a producer, not a designer, not a whatever. It's a Scrum Master. It's a different role. It is not one-to-one. PO and Scrum Master do not have a one-to-one analog with any other things if you're talking waterfall. PO is not a producer. PO is not a designer. A PO is a PO. Scrum Master, same thing. Scrum Master is a Scrum Master, and their job is to make sure Scrum is followed. They make this process work for people, and the people using Scrum get so educated on how it works that eventually they don't need Scrum Masters anymore. Ain't that crazy? But you need them at the beginning. Anytime there's a chance that this process, Scrum, is being altered, tragically, Scrum butt is about to pop in, to butt in, it's up to the Scrum Master to make sure that doesn't happen. Because they're the ones involved in the next pile of stuff. Got a sprint backlog. This is the list of tasks for sprint. Who, what, estimate. devs update their tasks the end of each day. What does update mean? I can't draw arrows. Re-estimate through whatever estimation points or time you're using. The end of every day, they go into the sprint backlog, spreadsheet, maybe Jira. Jira, by the way, it's an interesting note. Jira's not Scrum. Jira's Jira. It is its own process, wearing the skin of Scrum, but adding a whole bunch of other things. If you think you're using Scrum because you're just using Jira out of the box, surprise, surprise, that's not Scrum. That's Jira. You can do Scrum in Jira, but you got to really twist it into shape, which is bizarre. Anyways, so they do this because every day their knowledge might change. I'm getting lazy now. No one can read this shit. I'm sorry. I just want to get the ideas out there, though. So every day, knowledge might change. That's why they re-estimate. This thing is 20 points. 3 days later, they've never touched it and gone, oh, no, we figured out that other thing. This is 5 points. Re-estimate. So this is all, there's a burn down chart. It's like, and it says, hey, this is whatever is estimated time or points, the complexity up here, the beginning. Then this is the actual line based on people updating tasks, how much work's remaining. And it does this usually. Because people don't update every day. They should. I like it. I like sitting down and be like, yes, how can I express to the world the work that I have done today? Re-estimate. Other people hate it. Sometimes it does this. When that happens, ooh, this right here, that's a key indication to the Scrum Master something's happening. Conversation. That line going up, line go up in burned down chart, not good, not stonks. Have conversation. That is the conversation indicator. That's the reason burn down charts are useful. They're tied to the data in the sprint backlog. Every day your knowledge might change, so you go ahead and re-estimate everything at the end of the day. It's quick. If you have a 2-week sprint and there's too many tasks for you to re-estimate within 10 minutes at the end of the day, something went wrong. That ain't how it's supposed to be. But at the beginning of the day, this is what a lot of people complain about, and this is the thing I see most oftenly done incorrect. The stand-up. So, in an actual team, you don't want everyone on the entire project in your stand-up. You want like 8 people, maybe 10 maximum. People who are sharing a goal, a specific goal. If race car is the only thing that you're doing that sprint, you don't have all race car people in there. Here's what you do. People making the body have a sprint. People involved in that sphere have a stand-up, a sprint meeting, whatever you want to call it, a scrum. Scrum, by the way, rugby. After every play, people get together and figure out what the next play is. That's where the word came from. Anyways, stand up. Why not just say 8 or just say 10 people max? Because really, that's a warning sign if you get above 8 people in a stand-up meeting. This is the part that everyone does wrong. Oh my God, people love to do this wrong. Oh, I don't want to do Scrum because it has too many meetings. Does it? Really? No, it doesn't. Scrum Bud has too many meetings. Tragile has too many meetings. Scrum doesn't have too many meetings because Scrum has a stand up every day before a sprint starts. It's planned. At the end of the sprint, you review it and then you do a retrospective. Retrospective is where you can improve the process with your comments of things to keep doing, things you should stop doing, new things to try doing on the process itself. That's it. And the meetings you have every day are only 15 minutes. And they're helpful because you say, what did I do since the last stand up? And this wrote better in Paint. Anyways, what do I intend to do before the next stand up? Sometimes it's phrases, what did I do yesterday? What did I do today? Stand ups don't always happen in a time slot during the day to make that work well. So it's what have I done since the last stand up? What do I intend to do before the next stand up? What is in my way? Notice, very important. What? What was done? What do I intend to do? What is in my way? Not how, not why, just what? Just the facts. Just what? That's where people get hung up. They try to solve problems while they're talking. They get into deep detail about stuff. Not the place. And it's the Scrum Master's job to make that work. Someone's like, oh, I was modeling the body, and then in ZBrush, there's this bug that whenever I do a thing at a certain angle, this bump appears, and then whenever I try to fix it, it changes the scale of every. So while someone's talking like that, Scrum Master, in your head, countdown 20, 19, 18, 17. So you get to zero, say, hey, if they're still going, you're like, hey, sorry to cut you off. We got to keep going. I'll make a note that there's a ZBrush bug messing stuff up, and we'll talk later. I've heard of people having stand-up meetings that last more than 1 hour. Instant warning sign that you are not in Scrum. Someone is wearing a skin. They've killed Scrum and they've put its skin on something else. You get it? Too many meetings? No. Scrum doesn't have too many meetings. Scrum butt? Totally. Scrum doesn't have any too many meetings. If you mess up Scrum by having too many meetings, you're not running Scrum anymore. Stop it. And a lot of people are uncomfortable being that person, saying, yo, hey, you're done talking. You had to say thing X, Y, and Z, and you're going off the rails. We're moving on. There's also another misconception about these meetings. I wonder if any of this is controversial to anyone. Just spitting facts at you. People be like, no, I was in a Scrum, and it was a properly done Scrum, and it had all these meetings. Now, just now. This is the way it's supposed to be at the start. If you end up with an hour-long Scrum, and there's a retrospective runs an hour long. Well, it's still just called scrum, but a stand up. And retrospectives, people are like, I want the stand ups to last longer. And everyone's like, yes, good idea. And then you implement that over time, you're crazy. But sure, that's about the only way that can actually appear in a scrum. If you start a scrum and it's like, well, I don't really like this 15-minute limit. I don't like standing up to people or saying anything bad. I'm afraid I'll lose my job if I tell someone not to go into detail about a thing during a stand-up meeting, even though I'm the scrum master. Well, that's a different kind of warning sign. Not directed at the scrum master. This is not an update to one person. Scrum master doesn't care. They don't care about your tasks. They just care that you're doing scrum. You don't tell them about it. They're not going to fix your problem, or maybe they are, because once you get this "what is in my way" thing, scrum master tracks down the information sources to fix. Who at your company knows about ZBrush? Does anybody know about that bug? Is there a place online where you can look? Have those conversations. After a stand-up meeting, the scrum master is going to have a list of blockers. And even if they don't have any understanding about what the technical aspects of the work being done are at all, they can track down those blockers and help people resolve them because they're stopping work. That's part of the job. That's part of Scrum. Get people talking. Scrum Master doesn't come up with a solution. Scrum Master gets the information to the person who is blocked, whether that information is another person who knows this stuff or resources or anything else. Because often the Scrum Master is also a dev. That can work okay. I've never seen a Scrum Master as a job position. That's all they do. It's always, who's going to be the Scrum Master? There's more to that. We'll get to it. Not directed at the Scrum Master. You're not updating the Scrum Master. As a Scrum Master repeatedly in life, I have turned my back on the teams while they're talking during these updates. Rude, maybe. But they have to get it across their heads that the reason that they are together talking about this stuff is because they're all sharing a goal. They're all working on the modeling of the body of the car. They're not working on the wheels. These are just the people handling the body. And if one person has a problem that's going to hold up the rest of the work being done on the body, the whole group of people knowing work on the body need to know about it. A big thing where it's like, hey, it's the design stand up. We got 15 people in here talking about this guy's doing combat, and this guy's doing NPCs, and this guy over here is doing camera. Instantly wrong. Instantly. Stand ups are for the people working together on a specific goal. Not the overall goal. Don't try to exploit this by saying make video game is goal. No, 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 no. Make body of car. All the people involved in that are here. And if they're not people directly doing the work, if there's like an art stakeholder, they just want to have an update, yeah, come on in. Don't you say a word. Don't you say a word during this meeting. But you can come in and listen. And then afterwards, when the Scrum Master starts tracking down problems, you're probably the first on their list to talk to about getting help. Oh, the ZBrush error. Hey, art stakeholder, you know anything about that? And that is after the meeting. People who don't care about that, they get to go back to work. 15 minutes. I've seen it done so wrong. The reason that it's usually done wrong is because they're holding on to old job descriptions from Waterfall and smashing them into Scrum. We've got 3 producers. That means that they can only be in 3 stand-ups in a normal amount of time. Therefore, for that slot, I got an hour free because I'm a producer and I've got 27 million meetings a day, but I got an hour from 10 to 11 a.m. So everyone in my purview as a producer, which is not even a role in Scrum, is going to be in this one stand-up and they're going to update me on their progress. If that's happened to you, you're not using Scrum. You're using something else that people just made up and they're calling Scrum. But it's not Scrum. It's not how Scrum works. You're being misguided on the terminology. And that's why you hate Scrum. Straw man person I'm talking to right now who doesn't exist. You hate Scrum because, oh, I've seen another thing, like a meme with the dude from Minions, and it's like, oh, the whole meme is about, since there's no set in stone plan, that means whenever you implement something, it's just going to change later anyways. And I say to you, oh person who says, yes, I feel that meme in my soul. Has that never happened to you on a waterfall project? When you implement something, is that it? It's done forever and you never have to implement it again because everything was perfect? If so, bravo. You don't exist in my timeline. I do hope you find your way back sometime soon because this timeline's kind of trash. But I'm so glad you had an experience in another timeline where everything that you implemented was right, exactly, first try out of the gate. It didn't need any refactoring ever based on changing conditions in the project. Because that still happens in Waterfall. Waterfall is like driving a car down a path with high walls with low visibility. And instead of going slow and taking the turns right, you just wreck into a wall and keep the accelerator down as you slide on the wall, causing problems. Unless it's a road you've driven down 1,000 times. So what happens when there's problems in Scrum? Talk to your Scrum Master if there's a problem with Scrum. It doesn't have to be technical problems. They don't need to know how to do the work you do. That's why you're hired. They just got to know how to run Scrum. But if you get this thing here, oh, I re-estimated at the end of the day, and with new knowledge, I know that this is going to take, I don't know, 3 times as long. This is 3 times as complicated as I thought it was. That's got to be brought up. And the more proactive you are about bringing it up, the better the outcome's going to be. If you wait for someone to look at the project backlog, the sprint backlog, and say, oh, dear God, what happened here? And then they run to you and their head's on fire. It'd be much better if when you knew about the problem, you said, oh, hey, got a problem here. It'll take 3 times as long. And then the Scrum Master says, hey, thanks for letting me know. And then they go talk to the product owner. Say, hey, here's this thing. What do we want to do about it? And then everyone involved has a conversation. Maybe you bring in other stakeholders. Maybe you bring in leads or other experts. Because I'll tell you what, if the Scrum Master doesn't do anything about a spike in the amount of work that needs to be done, and the person doesn't bring it up to anybody, and the PO sees it, then they're going to ask people why they're not doing their job. That is not a good conversation to have. You don't want to have that. You want to be proactive. That's your job. And then if they don't, and an executive sees it, they're going to ask why your process is broken. They're going to lose trust with you. If there's a known problem clearly displayed on these things and no one brought it up before they happen to look at one of the sources of information? You don't want to do that. That's not a good thing. Bring up problems. Leads, bring up problems. If you're stuck on one of these projects and they're still using producers, bring it up to your producer. Talk. Don't hide. Hide bad. Talk good. If you're at a place where you have a thing that's like, oh yeah, this thing might take 3 times the estimate because there's things we didn't know then that we know now, and that's going to be something that you're afraid of getting fired over, you got more problems than just what you're using for your production methodology. Bad problems. That's an indicator that, like, oh, if you're afraid to bring up problems with the technical work to make a game, brush up that resume, get out. It's not the best of advice right now because the entire game industry job market is sinking into a tar pit. But that's why you don't quit. That's why you brush up your resume and you start, peeking around. Because being at a place like that where there's a real reason, not just social anxiety, but a real reason, like someone's done that and you've seen them get fired because of it, that's not a place you want to be at. Respect yourself. End of the sprint. You've done stuff. You've done great work. Everyone's happy. Or you're happy. How do you make everyone happy? Oh, look at this. It's going backwards in time. Here's how you do it. It's a sprint review. You did work for the sprint. You got to the end. Show it off. It's in game. Oh, but I did work that wasn't in game. Really? Like what, a design document? That was your only task for the whole sprint, was to write a big document? Warning sign. Warning sign. That's using Scrum without being agile. It's telling people to make big documents. That's keeping people employed when you have too many designers and production hasn't started yet. I've been in those situations. In that case, yeah, go ahead and show your documents or bullet points about it. Fine. That's whenever you get into presentations for it. But you're not supposed to have any presentations. The sprint review is not a presentation. You don't have fancy little soundtracks and cute little animations and a nice little PowerPoint presentation. No. It's supposed to be in game. Show the game off. Be like, here's the thing. Look, made car go fast room. Someone picks up the controller, hopefully the PO, hits the button, car go fast room. Car has body. We made 4 bodies. 3 of them are test, but we're going to show all of them here. Oh, cool. It's right there in game. We can see the body. Hopefully we can slap it on the car. It's not a presentation. We don't say, hey, here is what Eric's team of awesome did. Worked on magic wands. Here's what we did for magic wands. Animations, page transitions, made all these videos for it. No, it's got to be in the build, man. It's another place where there's a split. People love their presentations. People love being presented to. You know how long that takes? We got places to go, people to see, work to be done. We don't want to sit here with a guy talking about how awesome he is. If he's awesome, his work will be pretty awesome then, right? He won't need to tell us the thing that we can see and experience in front of us. It'll be self-evident. In-game, no presentation, no grandstanding. Inspection and iteration, this is where it goes. Now, there's a few ways to approach this. Pretty sure the by the book way is that everyone's in the room when this happens, and that if the PO says this is poo-poo caca, he says it in front of the people who made the poo-poo caca. It's uncomfortable, but it works. If it's good, say it's good. If it's bad, say it's bad. But often I will see this work where they have the presentation, and then there's like the deep work of reviewing this. It's really getting into the nitty gritty. It's useful to have everyone there for those conversations. Yeah, car fast go vroom, but it doesn't handle well. I know you haven't implemented physics enough to have drift. Maybe this would feel better with drift. That's a conversation. Those are salient points. That's going to inform the PO. When they reprioritize the backlog. The PO uses the sprint review to gain the information that they need to have conversations that will lead to the reprioritization of the backlog. But they're also doing this constantly. This is part of their job, is they're constantly doing this. Scrum projects are not run in such a way, usually, that on a 2-week sprint, nothing changes in the build until those 2 weeks are up. The PO is out there playing it, having conversations, checking with people, seeing how things are going, seeing if things have changed in corporate, seeing if anything's coming down from the top, seeing if anything needs to come up from the bottom. And it's a lot of work. PO drives quality and scope. Scrum Master drives Scrum. Sometimes they butt heads. Whenever the PO says we need to work on tires, tries to kick in the door in the middle of a sprint, it's the Scrum Master who says, wow, that's a pretty big change request. We're going to have to replan completely and completely stop this, pull everybody out, have a new planning meeting for it. Sprint's over in 3 days. Can this wait till after the sprint review? That's the Scrum Master's job. PO's job is to make sure that they are current on the current state of the game enough that they can reprioritize the product backlog. They get that rest of the information here in this meeting during the sprint review. They have some more conversations. Updated product. Based on this inspection of the game, conversations that come out of it, they make the product backlog ready for the next sprint planning. That's the sprint review. It is in-game, meant to generate feedback and information that is used to figure out what we're doing next. If they said, oh, well, still needs some work, it's crappy, but the product backlog said the next thing that we have to do is the wheels, so we're just going to ignore this feedback and do the wheels. No, that is not how this works. Inspect, iterate until the product owner feels that the feature is meeting the requirements the feature needs to meet right now with their discussions from people above them. And then they say, with this information, what is the next return on investment good thing need to be? And if something is not good enough that the people have been working on and they're having this conversation, chances are there'll be another sprint to deal with it. But if it's good, if it hits those requirements, same process happens where they take that information and use it to reprioritize the product backlog, put the highest ROI thing on top. That's going to be the next sprint. That goal. One more piece of the puzzle. I mentioned it once before already. It's that thing. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Oh no, it's on the tip of my brain and it won't come out. It'll come to me. Thanks, brain. I knew you could do it. Meeting to adjust process. Sprint review's done. Talking about the work, that's the review. Now you talk about how the process went. Talk about what are you doing that you should continue, what things should you stop doing, what things should you start doing. These aren't tasks. This is how it works. Someone could say it would be useful if the end of a stand-up we got the general temperature of the team for how they feel about completing the goal by the end of the sprint with a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Oh, that's a start. We could try that out. And the next sprint, they could be like, absolutely do not want the thumbs up, thumbs down thing anymore. That was useless. All right, we'll stop that. Or, hey, that worked really well. Let's continue that. This becomes a growing list, which defines an individual team's process. And as it gets going, it doesn't need to look like Scrum anymore. On a long enough timeline, things can get so known with how things are built in the game. So much clarity, no fuzzy left. You don't even need a Scrum Master. I've seen art teams go through it, and they say, we don't need planning and estimates. We just know how much of this stuff we can get through. We'll give you a list. Excellent. If that's where they got through actually doing the process and building the scaffolding in that direction, great. That's where they want to start? No. Prove it to me. It's not that I don't trust you. I don't trust the world. Going through the process shows that this fits into the world. There it is, the dark secret. It's aiming for a 1% improvement. If you do 100 sprints, it should be twice as good. The process should have improved 100%. It should be twice as good as it was when you started with basic Scrum. It doesn't always happen, but that's the aim. Aim for a 1% improvement. You're not adding stuff that's funny. You're not adding stuff that's not useful. This is about improving the process. To improve the process, what should we continue to do? To improve the process, what should we stop doing? To improve the process, what could we try out and start to do? It's always to improve the process. Sometimes people don't like it because it's not about their job. It is about their job, but it's not about their discipline or their skills or their talents. Sometimes continue is, or start is, buy this tool. Need this plugin for this art program. Get this plugin and speed stuff up. All right, that's a conversation to have with whoever procures things. That's where that's where this happens. This doesn't need to take long. You can get the sprint review and the retrospective done in one day, usually. Unless you're on a massive team where the game is super different, super updated. every time. I've seen that too. I've also seen some horrible, horrible abominations. One of them is the idea of pre-planning, where you have leads plan out the next sprint and then hand tasks to people. And they call that Scrum. But that's not Scrum. That's this. That assumes those leads know stuff. Why are there even leads in Scrum? The heck are you talking about leads? Is that a Scrum Master, a PO, or a dev? A lot of places, they have a system and a pay scaled system departmentally, got junior, normal, associate, 1, 2, 3, senior, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And they're not going to just throw that up in the air because people want to try out Scrum. So there's still going to be titles. I hired this guy as a producer. What's a Scrum Master? How much do they get paid? Nope, we'll just leave him producer. Directors? Yeah, you don't touch stuff above the dev level for Scrum. Directors are still directors, etc., etc. But all that stuff underneath it, they're still going to have titles if they're working on Earth, unless they've made this studio just for Scrum. Just not outside the realm of possibility. That could happen. Scrum can withstand a certain amount of change. As long as there's iteration, inspection, a clear process that's clearly tracked, someone keeping track of that process, someone worried about the return on investment, as long as teams are being presented goals and not tasks, goals they can make into tasks themselves, as long as those conversations are happening, that's Scrum. Scrum's got its problems. Does not deal with deadlines very well. This game needs to be out March 27th, 2027. Uh, we can. We cannot predict exactly what the form of the game will be like on March 27th, 2027. But what we can do is work up to a certain point and then have the rest of the sprints be just to polish it for ship, whatever that happens to be. Non-ideal. Ideally, a Scrum project ready for ship, the team would go, yeah, I'm ready to ship that. Do you know in Japan, there's been teams that are like, no, we're going to keep working on this game because it's not ready to ship yet. At like major publishers. Must be nice. Well, that's Scrum. Look at that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. There's books you can read. Agile Game Development by Clinton Keith, second edition. Go find that if you're interested in this. It really gets into it. And other stuff. Yeah. I didn't even talk about the sprint boards or anything. Let's talk about that real quick while I'm doing it. The sprint. Because you could do it all in a spreadsheet. It's fine. But normally you've got a board. Because I want to talk about the differences between this and Kanban. Board. Board. Not started in Prague. Done. And then you got your note cards. Post-it notes on a whiteboard or whatever. So whenever you have your stand-up, this thing is there. And you update it. You could use it. You do not use it. Who cares? Do you know how to read a spreadsheet? Spreadsheets are fine. You really want to use this? Then use it for real. The problem I've seen with having a sprint board is that people talk to the sprint board and they say, what did I do yesterday? And then they move things around. Oh, well, I moved this over to here and they'll like try to re-estimate and stuff here. No, it slows down the process. It's nice to have a visual indicator of the progress of the team. You got one up here if you're doing it right. Because the stand-up is just to inform each other of their progress, not to update their tasks. Updating tasks takes place on their own at the end of the day. They should be able to come in here and coherently say what they did, what they plan to do, what's in their way without looking at the sprint board. That's a personal note. Scrum uses this, but I've seen it wreck things and referred to incorrectly. Let's talk about Kanban. So this here is, these are the tasks. They could be anything, not started, in progress, done. This is their status. Turn that inside out. May not be the best thing. Talk about art. I'm not an artist. I don't do art stuff. So forgive me if this is dumb. But instead of having a thing here saying this is the note that is research car bodies, this is the test model for it. Oh, I shouldn't have test and model. It's one thing. Like having a different card for each one. Body 1. Body 2. It's the asset. Enemy design, weapon design, character design, car design, whatever. Whatever it is, if you got more than one of them, and there's a process by which those things are made, and that process is set in frickin' stone. And I'm serious about this. If you know the process and you've got that process down, you can use signal cards for it. Kanban is signal cards. Each column represents a part of the process in Kanban, and each column represents the same amount of time. There's wiggle room ways of getting around that, but this should be broken down. The process of making this stuff itself should be broken down if you're using Kanban to the point that each one of these columns represents the same amount of time. And then every day, or every amount of time that this represents, I guess I should say, these cards move to the next one. That's very important. This is a set amount of time. When that time is over, the card moves to the next column because it's ready for that. Any card that doesn't move means everybody stops working who has anything to do with any part of this process. And they look at that card and they say, why didn't this move forward? And they figure out the problem and they get it moving forward as fast as possible to the detriment of everybody's time. It is set in stone rules about process and time, and everybody is on the hook. Everyone has skin in the game because everyone has to stop what they're doing to fix this when it goes wrong. And it works. They do this to build cars. It's where it came from. Again, in Japan. I've seen this over here. Scrum stuff referred to as a Kanban. Stop it. It's not. It is literally not that thing. It shares some similarities. There are columns and writing on a board with cards. They are not the same thing. Holy cow. Kanban's different. Kanban is like if waterfall, when I talked about waterfall working with a team that's done the same thing thousands of times, they just do it and they're efficient at it because they already know everything that could happen. That's Kanban. That's what it is. Waterfall only works whenever people know all that stuff. Once they know it, you could break the process down because you know what's going to happen. You know this is going to take 3 days, and this takes 3 days, and this takes 3 days. Or you have to cut it down into 2 things, and each one takes 3 days. Whatever it is, that's how this exists. Scrum, not Kanban. Kanban, not Scrum. Cousins, yes. Not the same thing. I think now I've officially talked about this more on stream than I did actual design work. But I have a passion for this. There's a soapbox I have for Scrum that is just gathering dust now because every project I've been on, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear some designer who likes Scrum, who's been evangelizing it and studied it and run two of them successfully. Projects using Scrum, I mean, 80% successfully maybe. It's a great advantage, and seen a third project that actually I saw first, where it was run well enough to convince me that yes, this is a better way of making games. But I'm not a producer. I'm a game designer. I just like Scrum. I like helping teams. I like empowering teams. Oh my goodness. I've been on waterfall things where someone who has no idea, they're not an expert in something, tell people who, a person who is an expert, what they have to do. And if that person doesn't do it, bad marks. Bad. Well, what did you hire them for? You're hiring these great people. Let them do great work. Let them figure it out. I don't want to tell them that it's a red car with this many gears that has this much horsepower that can only go this fast and it needs to be exactly this. I want to tell them that it's a car, it goes fast, it needs to be balanced against the other cars in interesting ways. And let them figure it out. That's what you pay them for. Because they're going to have to do that anyways, no matter how much you want to puff up your peacock feathers. Darr. Not good at office politics, by the way. I like process that eliminates office politics. I've been hurt and seen projects hurt. I've seen projects completely canceled after millions of dollars were spent just because office politics. I don't get it. You should be here to make games. If you're in the game industry, it should be because you love making games. Chances are it's not to be making a pile of money. Chances are it's not for job stability. It's because you love making games and you can't get it out of your head. It's part of your soul. I do love making games. Yeah. So, anyways, that's my Scrum overview. So, what am I doing here that's like Scrum? It's just me. I don't need clarity. I don't need estimates. My whole timeline, I don't know. Just trying to do stuff and learn stuff. So, this is fine. I like keeping track of the things that I have done. What's in the game? It's kind of this stuff. What am I working on? It's this stuff. What's blocking me? It's this stuff. Use that to learn. What bugs do you have? This. What growing debt do you have that you need to deal with? Combat stuff in MP. Because I'm not going to remember this. If I look at this one day and I go, oh, that's right. I forgot I can't interact with a rifle equipped. Good. This is doing its job. Otherwise, I'm forced to rediscover it in the game every time that I play. Wow. Wow. Man, maybe I should apply for producer jobs. Anyway. Oh, why producer jobs are like Scrum so much? Because there's no such thing as a Scrum Master job in video games. It's been roundly rejected. That's the thing. If this was my job, like, hey, be a producer and run this Scrum, and like the studio wasn't 100% behind it, and they forced all this Scrum butt stuff, how soul crushing would that be? I don't want to sign up for that. Unless I want to kick in the door and be like, no, you're going to do it right now. It's going to be correct now. See how long it takes before they kick me out. Wahaha, production. You don't need to be all the way up here. You can still live down there, little window. I just need to do this. Well, that was 2.5 hours of literally being alone in a room ranting to myself about Scrum. But it felt good. Design? Mission design? I'm not going to be able to get into it in any reasonably good amount of ways right now. I've been talking about Scrum for 2 hours. My brain's mush. When we do talk about design in general or mission design, got to realize design's kind of fractal. That is an infinitely repeating thing if you do it right. You take a wildly complicated idea and then you go to design it, you're going to break it down over and over and over and over again. Everything you break down can be broken down, and all the things you break that down into in a design sense can be broken down. The other day here, I was talking about combat, the essential of it being there's a variable on one actor, and another actor has actions they can take that affect the value of that variable, and then something happens when that variable hits a threshold. Exciting, I know. Sounds like a great combat design. But if it's really its core elements, that's it. And you define what's that variable? What are those actions? What happens at the thresholds and what are the thresholds? Each one of those can be dug down into. Why not two stats? If you have health, when it hits 0, that means that NPC is defeated. Well, there's another stat that other actions can affect in other ways. Food for thought. Food for thought. Well, thanks for tuning in to channel Dodo Dev on your Twitch TV. I kind of wanted to say that in a way that sounded weird, but all those words actually count correctly for Twitch. Cool. I didn't do any Unreal dev, but I was talking about game development, so I guess it still counts. And I showed some Unreal stuff off. Here's my plan. I do stuff in between the stream. Maybe this weekend I'll touch stuff. I want to keep going with the AI. I want to get the AI in a point. AI. I'm trying to wean myself away from calling enemy behaviors AI. I want to get the NPCs to a point where they could do some interesting stuff, maybe to the point where they're using the EGS system to know when to take cover and pop out and whatnot. And then I want to finish my second guy, and I want to figure out what the behaviors are that are different between these two core guys. Can't really, I could talk about mission design in general before that, but that's really where I need to be for the project. So maybe I'll do a little bit of that over the weekend. I'll have a little bit of a show and tell. Then I can come back with some more stories. I hope you had fun, because I had fun saying them. I like talking about Scrum. Sure, it's not the last time that's going to happen here. Probably ticked people off. They're like, that's not Scrum. My experience with Scrum is it all blah, 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 blah. Yeah, man, it's okay. It's okay if we have differing opinions. It's all right. Go make games. That's all that matters. Express yourself creatively. The actual interfacing of the player, making things happen in a game and having the game react, that's an art. Not like a make pretty artifacts kind of art. An art like speaks to the human condition and makes you feel stuff kind of thing. That's what gameplay actually is. So go make games because we need more of that done in a human and heartfelt way out in the world. And I'll see you next time.